Hi everyone and welcome to the 2025 PostgresWorld Webinar Series. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Aaron Cutshall. Aaron will be presenting on how to give a technical presentation. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Aaron.
Hello, how are you? So today I want to talk about a topic that many people are very concerned about, and that is when you are called upon to give a presentation. Now, while this subject does say how to give a technical presentation, this also applies to non-technical presentations as well. But I just wanted you to be aware that we will highlight some of those features as we go through. Jerry Seinfeld said, according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Death is number two. Does that sound right? This means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. I don't know about that part of it, but people do have a fear of public speaking. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. You can find me on the internet as SQL RV. Yes, I do have an RV, and I go and attend at SQL presentations, given many across the country. I am a director of data services at Honest Health, based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I have been a community ambassador for Redgate since 2023, and I've started a relationship with Synchrony as their advisor in this year. I have been to a few conferences, as you can see from there, many of which I've presented both technical and professional development presentations. I got my Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. I also, when I was working in manufacturing, I got a Master of Science in Computer Information Systems from University of Phoenix. But when I got into healthcare, and I realized that I could do more to save lives than just work on pretty cool projects, I went back and got another master's in health informatics, and then later finished with a doctorate in healthcare administration. And this is because I really love how data can impact healthcare. And I've been doing this for well over 35 years. So I've been around the block a few times. So here's something to consider. Mark Twain said that there are only two types of speakers in the world, the nervous and the liars. So it seems to me that if someone says they're not nervous, that they're lying about it. I will tell you that I am not lying. I am still nervous. I still get nervous even after doing this for many, many years. So a lot of people are saying, me speak? Are you kidding? Why would I want to do that? And so ask yourself the question, why should I speak? It's really one of the best methods for personal growth. I can guarantee that, because it helped me to build extra confidence in myself and be able to do things that I didn't think I would be able to do. You may think that, well, I don't have anything to tell, but you do. You have something unique to teach. Everyone's perspective is different. Everyone has a different way of looking at a problem. And then your perspective may be exactly what someone in the audience needed. Additionally, you will also learn during the process of being able to put together a presentation and giving one. Especially after you do it many times, you're going to learn a lot more about yourself. There are also many great benefits. You get to meet a really lot of interesting people, people from all over the world that I get to talk with. You especially learn a lot more about your topic. It's said that the way to learn something well is to teach it. And that is true. Like I said, you learn a lot more about yourself, and it's a lot of fun. You want to be able to do it because you get, like I said, you get to meet so many people and have fun while doing it. So the question is, how do we get started with this? We're going to talk about how to create a presentation. That includes selecting a topic, writing the abstract and what an abstract is, creating an outline, gathering your materials together so that you can actually create the presentation. We'll also talk about actually giving the presentation, how to prepare for it, overcoming the speaker anxiety, which is the fear that people have of public speaking, how to give the presentation itself, and almost as importantly, getting and using feedback so that you can grow and make yourself better. And then I'm gonna give you a challenge to make it happen. So selecting a topic. First of all, you want to pick something that you can share. It could be something that you just learned that was really cool, a technique or a concept, or something that you wish someone else had taught you a long time ago. However, you want to make sure it's applicable to your audience. Because if I were to go to a conference of actuarials and talk to them about, database technology and Postgres, they'd get all, confused, and it wouldn't mean anything to them. So you want to make sure that you have the right topic for the right audience. But you also want to make sure that you have personal experiences with the topic, because as you share your personal experiences, it helps you to relate the audience. It helps the audience to relate to you and you to the audience, and also helps them to relate to the topic. Now, don't worry if you think it's already been done. I mean, I've attended a lot of presentations on how to give a presentation, and every one of them is different. I attended several of them, and I learned from them. So don't worry that it's already been done, because again, your perspective is very unique from all the other speakers. And you will help someone who needed your particular viewpoint and help make some things click for them. I mean, if we went with the fact that, oh, it's already been done, there'd be a lot fewer presentations and a lot fewer speakers. Think about books, for example. Do you think that there's only one book on a particular topic? No, there's a lot of books on the same topic because people have different perspectives. And that's what we need. So when you go to select a topic, ask yourself these questions. Do I have knowledge about the topic? Am I passionate about it? Passion will come through in your presentation. And the third one is, does my audience really care about it? Again, you want to make sure that you have a topic appropriate for the audience. So when you look at this Venn diagram that I have here, there's a circle of topics that you know, there's a circle of topics that you love, and then the topics that your audience cares about. So you want to choose your topics in this sweet spot there in the middle. The important thing, though, is to establish some goals for your presentation. Do you want to teach a technique? Do you want to solve a problem? Or maybe you already know about a problem, or there's one already there, and you want to demonstrate a solution for that problem. What are your objectives in that presentation? And more importantly, what do you expect from the audience? Today, I expect you to be able to give a presentation and to set a goal to give one. That's my expectation. So what do you have from your audience? What do you want them to learn? So the first thing we need to do is to be able to create an abstract. The abstract is kind of like a business card for your presentation. It's a generalized description of your topic and what you expect to be able to teach and what you want the audience to walk away with. That abstract is going to be used to sell your presentation to the event organizers, because they have to be able to select what sessions to include in their conference. Oftentimes, there are more submissions for presentations than there are slots available. So they have to be able to turn people away. And unfortunately, I have been turned away from a lot of conferences, not because my presentation wasn't any good, but because there was a lot of other people that may have been speaking on the same topic. And since I've been doing this for a long time, they wanted to give an opportunity for new speakers. And I totally appreciate that. I think that's a great idea. But also, the abstract helps the event attendees to be able to understand what it is that they are going to get out of this presentation. Why should they choose to attend your presentation as opposed to the one next door? That's really what you want to be able to get out of it. So your abstract must match the presentation. You don't want to have an abstract that makes promises that you don't deliver on, because people will be unhappy. If your attendees are unhappy, they're going to let the organizers know, and then it's not going to help you and get selected for the next presentation. Now, if the attendees are in the wrong session, I kind of think it's your fault because you didn't describe the session correctly. I've had that happen before when I was first starting out. People would tell me that, you know what, I thought I was going to be learning one thing and you were talking about something else. So it's because of my abstract. It needs to be clear and concise so that it improves the selection process for the conference managers and also for the attendees. And it will improve your success in the presentation. So to create an abstract, we want to give it a title. Now, if you notice that my title, How to Give a Technical Presentation, it wasn't really fancy, but it describes exactly what it is that we're going to be doing. Now, if you can come up with a catchy one, that's great, but you don't want it to be too obscure. For example, a friend of mine gave a presentation on how to give presentations, and his title was, You Should Be Standing Here. And I thought that was pretty cool. Now, often quick decisions are made based upon the title alone. People may not take time to read the abstract, so the title itself may be their only guide. You also want to be able to give a good description of the presentation. You want to be descriptive but brief. Usually there's sometimes a word limit, like 250 words or so, depending upon the conference. So you want to give a description of your presentation and the issues that you're going to address. You also want to be able to let the audience know how to identify how that issue impacts the audience, how it's going to impact each and every individual. So you want to include 2 to 3 key learning points for those that are attending. Then you want to create an outline. This outline is your plan for the presentation. And it helps to make sure that you're going through a logical progression from topic to topic. It also helps you to keep focused on your goal as a presenter. It also helps the audience to know what to expect. Because if they don't know what to expect, then they're going to be confused. So your presentation, if it's without a plan, it loses the focus of the audience and it loses the focus of the speaker. And it just ends up wasting everyone's time. So you want to make sure that you have a good plan for your presentation. The outline will also ensure that your presentation will cover all the points that you need and only what's needed. It helps to keep you on track and from going down rabbit holes and other topics. It also helps to keep your audience engaged because then they know what to expect. And it helps to fulfill your goal of actually teaching the audience. So in that outline, we first of all start with an introduction. And this introduction will consist of opening remarks. And this is kind of like an icebreaker and the speaker introduction. Notice that I, introduced myself and my background. And then you want to talk about what is the purpose of this presentation. And it's really the primary reason for the presentation. And then you give a preview of the presentation, which is what I did with the agenda, so that they know what is coming up. And then we start walking into the body of the presentation. And so we start with the first topic, like I mentioned about, how to get started. And so then you go into more detail for each of those topics. And you want to be detailed enough, but you don't want to get too deep that you lose your audience. Because after all, you only have an hour. So if you find yourself writing a lot of material for a presentation, you might want to break it down and maybe make it multiple presentations. So you go through each of your topics. And again, you want to have enough material to cover the topic, but without getting too bogged down on the details. And then you create a conclusion. And this conclusion is going to be a review of the topics that you gave. It's been told to me that, in a presentation, you want to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them again what you told them, because that repetition helps people to remember. And then you want to wrap it up to show how you fulfilled your purpose of the presentation. And then closing remarks will bring everything together from beginning to end, so that it makes it nice from progression from the beginning all the way to the end. The next thing you want to do is start gathering your materials. So you want to select materials that supports your topic, what you're going to talk about, and your outline. It's wonderful for you to be able to draw upon your own knowledge and experiences. But you want to be able to do some research to fill in, the gaps or missing information that you have in your presentation and your material. That's where you really learn a lot more about your topic. But you want to make use of reputable sources. Such as industry vendors and renowned industry leaders. Those are great. Published works are also awesome because they've been, fairly well vetted. But you do want to be careful of blogs and Wikipedia because blogs tend to be somewhat opinion-driven, and Wikipedia is everyone contributes to that, and so some of the resources are not very well vetted. When you do select material from someone else, you want to give credit and provide a reference to those sources. So whenever you have quotes, paragraphs, or any other major contributions, you want to be able to quote where you got that information from. Like I mentioned with the Mark Twain comment. Also, if you use photos, images, or graphics, or anything of that nature, you want to be able to identify where you came up with that. If you created it yourself, that's great. But if you're like me and I have no artistic talent, so I borrow graphics from other sources, and I show where those came from. And then you want to be able to create the presentation. So an abstract is used as your sales pitch, again, like I said, for the presentation. So it introduces your topic and why it's important, what is going to grab people's attention and bring them into it. So in that, you identify your goals and what the audience should get out of it. And then you create your title page. And this is going to be the established purpose of the presentation. This is why we are here. Again, you want to make it short and sweet and to the point. Catchy titles can be helpful, but you don't want to make it so that it's something that people may not get, especially if their English is not their primary language. And then you want to add in your biography. So you want to establish the credentials that you have, which is what I did when I talked about my education. But you don't want to include personal information, vacation pictures, pictures about the kids and pets. It's not very helpful. You definitely want to avoid topics on religion and politics because those can be controversial if presented incorrectly. And again, you want to be able to identify the purpose because in your presentation goals, the audience is going to be asking, what's in this for me? What am I going to be getting out of this? And so that way you can help set their expectations appropriately. Now, as you go into your major topics, you want to further refine each of those topics into further detail. And that's where you include your supporting detail or your supporting material as needed to support that detail. I like to have a midpoint review in my presentations, especially if they're more than 30 minutes, because it serves as a logical break, especially when I use a lot of material. And it provides a good transition between points from major portions of the presentation. I also wrap up with a closing because it gives me the opportunity to review the major topics. Again, I want to tell people what I already told them about, and I want to give them important takeaways, things that the audience should take away with them when they leave. And I also provide further references, or references for further studies, so that they can look at that when they get my slide material, my slides, and look at the links in that. They can go and do some research for themselves. But the important thing here is that you want to present a call to action. You want the audience to do something as a result of your presentation. Because if you don't, nothing will happen. And remember, this is also the whole point of your presentation, and that's to get them to do something about it. I also create a question slide, because it gives people opportunity to ask questions, especially at the end of it. They may not want to ask during the presentation because they feel they don't want to interrupt. So they'll wait till the end of the presentation to ask that. And I also give complete contact info so people can reach to me when they have additional questions. Now, when you create the presentation, you want to use some simple designs that have high contrast and easy to read fonts. As you notice, my presentation is black on white, very high contrast, very simple. I've seen presentations that use a lot of colors, which present problems because people's eyes focus on the new things, or if they have an animation of an image, they'll focus on that, and so it distracts their attention. Also, people who are colorblind may have difficulties with those colors. You also want to have consistency, not only in your slide style, but in the transitions from one slide to another, the use of fonts and animation. You notice that I use animation to present the material as I need it, and it helps keep your audience's focus on that. It also helps with if you're consistent with your delivery method and the flow of slides. You want to make sure it's a smooth progression from one to the other. It also helps to set the audience expectations, because if after the first few slides and I start seeing how that's going to be done, it helps me to anticipate what I'm going to see next. And remember, your message is the star of the presentation, not your PowerPoint skills. I've seen people who spent a lot of time and effort trying to make use of every type of feature that PowerPoint has, and their message got completely lost because the PowerPoint itself was a distraction. Now, I want to give you some caution warnings because it is warranted. Again, you want to avoid the flashy or over-dramatic animation because it will distract your audience. And too much of that flash, people will focus on that, and it reduces the impact of your message or causes it to be lost completely. And again, as I mentioned about the colors, lots of bright colors, they can be distracting, and it may be difficult for those who are colorblind to see them. If you do need colors, such as a bar chart or a pie chart, you want to keep it simple with a stark contrast. So you don't want to put shades of the same color together. And you also want to label them. So if the color couldn't be perceived at all, at least the label could be read. But remember that when things are simple and effective, it's far more important, because simplicity will make the presentation go a lot smoother. I also like to give demonstrations when possible. So if you're giving a technical presentation and you have a demonstration that's critical to your topic, you want to make sure that you have backup screenshots, because if anything can go wrong during a presentation, it will. You also want to use test data that's readily available to anyone so that they can pick up that test data and try it out themselves. AdventureWorks is one of the example test data sets. Never, ever use real data or your own work environments, because that opens up a whole can of worms and can end up getting you fired if you're not careful. I also suggest that you script wherever possible, because whenever you type in demos, it increases the chance that something is going to go wrong. I've been in situations where I had to type in a demo, and yeah, it caused things to go wrong. If you're having a particularly complex environment, consider a virtual machine, because then you can restart that easily and go on. I also like to use the special demo slide. That way I can highlight that, yes, this is a demo. You also want to make sure that you use appropriate fonts. I like to use a larger font size, as you can notice, and with that high contrast that we talked about earlier. There is also a tool out there called Zoom It. So I would suggest that you get and use Zoom It. And this is a demo slide. So this is what I would like to show as a demo, but for time today, we're going to skip this part of it. So here's my midpoint review. So we covered these topics so far: how to select a topic, creating the outline, gathering materials, and creating the actual presentation. Now, coming up next, we're going to talk about preparing for actually giving the presentation, overcoming speaker anxiety, and some tips on actually giving the presentation itself, and also importantly, getting and using feedback. Are there any questions so far? Okay. So now we're going to talk about preparing for the presentation. First of all, practice, practice, practice. That's really important. I found that if I give my presentation standing in front of a mirror, or preferably in front of a camera where I can record it, it helps me to see where I'm going wrong. You also want to be mindful of timing and how long each portion of your presentation is. If possible, try it out with an audience. I will tell you that my cat has been a wonderful audience for my presentations when I'm first giving them. So if you have demos, practice them many times, especially from beginning to end, because things will always go wrong. So that's why you want to have backup screenshots just in case. And if anything can go possibly wrong, it will, and at the most inopportune time, like during your presentation. Again, be prepared because things will go wrong. I've had situations where my laptop wouldn't start. It worked fine when I shut it down and left my office and went to go give my presentation, and it would not start up again. So because of that, I had to be prepared. I've had situations where I didn't have any Wi-Fi or internet available when it was necessary. My presentation file got corrupted one time. I was missing a cable or it went bad. So before you leave your office when you're giving an in-person presentation, make sure you have multiple backups. Because my laptop didn't start and I had my presentation on a thumb drive, I was able to use someone else's laptop. So I was able to go on as needed. Make sure you pack every cable and adapter that you need. I take extras because somebody else might need one as well. I use extra batteries because that's always a perfect time for your remote to go down or your mouse is when you're in a presentation. And don't forget your business cards. That helps you to sell yourself again so that people will remember you. I've given virtual presentations as well, like this one. And so before you give that presentation, make sure that you have everything prepped and ready for it. And then connect to the presentation session early, as I did on this one, to make sure that all my connectivity was good. Perform my headset check, make sure everything was good. I have a wonderful moderator here to help, and those people are invaluable in sessions. And you also want to self-promote your presentation. I like to create notifications on LinkedIn to talk about when and where that presentation is. Use Twitter if you use that, or X as they call it now. And if you have a personal blog or a website, that's a good place for your abstract as well. Now, overcoming speaker anxiety. The human brain starts working the moment you were born and never stops until you stand up to speak in public. And that is very true. I've had that moment as well. And that speaker anxiety is called glossophobia. And it's about a fear of being judged because you think that the audience is going to be judging you as a person. After all, no one gives a perfect speech. I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson said. All the great speakers were bad speakers at first. They had to grow into it. So you really need to face your fears. And you don't want to focus on real or imagined mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I've made several during this presentation, but I don't let that stop me. You probably didn't even notice, but I noticed it, and I don't want that to impact my presentation. And don't worry that your audience is going to be critical, because they're not there to judge you as a person. They're there to learn from you. And besides, everyone knows that, while preparation is important, it's okay not to be perfect. And your audience will be aware of that. Just know your material, understand what your slides are and the demos. Again, practice, practice, practice. Because surprises cause stress, and stress is what you don't need during a presentation. It helps if you can anticipate some of the questions that will be asked and have some answers ready for that. And I always say, be willing to say, I don't know. I don't know everything. And it's okay to say, I don't know. But it's okay to say, well, you know what? I'll find out and let you know. So go easy on yourself, because we're often our own worst critics. So you want to relax. Even go to the bathroom before your presentation. Stretch around, relieve your tension, and breathe. Your brain is going to need oxygen, and you're going to need your brain. In a live presentation, I like to talk to people in the presentation. It helps me to work with them and to know what they're like. And I also don't want to focus too much on individual expressions because you don't want to perceive something incorrectly. But you do want to interact with the audience as much as possible. And remember, none of us are professional speakers. You're not on trial to be judged. You are not the focus. Your subject is. And we all have empathy for speakers who are really trying. And your audience is going to have the same empathy for you. So with practice and repetition, yes, your speaker anxiety will diminish, but it will never go away. It's something that always stays with you. Again, even with me. So again, before your presentation, make sure you're set up ahead of time. Check everything out. Shut down the distractions that can pop up, such as your email, your phone, etc. And then queue up your presentation and get everything ready. I like to customize my presentation area a little bit because it makes me feel like I own it. Make sure you have something to drink because your mouth will get dry and it will be necessary. In a live presentation, I like to enlist the help of someone to help me with that presentation, to give me warnings and to pass out handouts, although I usually don't use handouts. And it's okay to chat with folks before your presentation because it helps them to get to know you as well as you know them, and it helps you to relax. When you go to give your presentation, I like to step away from the podium. I like to move around a bit. So giving a virtual presentation is a little tough on me because I'm sitting still. And you can't always see my hands moving because it helps me to keep engaged. If you have questions, repeat them because not everyone in the room is going to hear it. And it helps to make sure that you understand that question yourself before you answer it. And what I like to do is if you have time, let the audience answer some of those questions. In a virtual presentation, remember you do have an audience. I know sometimes I feel like I'm just standing here talking or sitting here talking in front of the computer, but I do have an audience. So you want to keep your focus on the camera, speak clearly, and don't get too rushed. I am a little rushed because I'm trying to get a lot presented in a short period of time, but you don't want to get robotic either. And remember that you do have an audience. Chat features are great for that, to help with the questions, and moderators especially to help with manage those questions. And as you noticed, I stopped to answer questions in case we had any. So it allows possible audience participation. You want to be flexible and be ready to focus on certain slides as needed. Be ready to skip because if you're running out of time, you may have to abort early. And have fun because the more fun you have with it, the audience will enjoy it as well. And you will grow from the experience. One of the things you don't want to do is don't necessarily read your slides. Now, quotes are important to read, but you don't want to read everything verbatim because people can read. Avoid the hot topics of politics and religion, and be prudent, and sensible. Avoid biases and jokes, especially profanity. When you answer questions, you want to keep the time limit in mind because otherwise the audience can expand your presentation time and it can throw you off track. But again, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but make sure you'll find out. And again, paraphrase the question rather than merely repeat it because when you rephrase it, it shows that you truly do understand it. And then listen carefully to the entire question. Sometimes we tend to cut people off and it throws people off. And we may not have even understood what the real question was. Not everyone is good at asking questions. And use your eye contact to make sure that you're focused on the question and address your response to the entire room. And when you get feedback, that's really important. That's how you learn and grow in your presentation. And in person, at the end of the presentation, I like to talk to people and get their feedback. And whether you get feedback written or electronic, you want to remember that to throw out the extremes because you have people that are really hate it because they're having a bad day, or they really love it because it was a topic that they really wanted. but you want to focus on the most common things because that will be the ones that stand out. Winston Churchill said that, criticism is like pain in the body. It calls an attention to an unhealthy state of the things. And that is very true. And Hillary Clinton said, basically, don't take it personally. If there's truth to it, learn from it. Otherwise, let it roll right off. And there are some other topics that I could go into, but it appears that we're running out of time. So be mindful of the feedback and don't let the compliments go to your head and don't let criticism get to your heart. So just some closing things. Again, we want to pull it all together. Select your topic, create your outline, gather your materials, and create your presentation. This will all help you put it together. And then prepare for it. Learn to overcome your speaker anxiety with the tips that I presented. And then, of course, give the whole presentation. That is the whole purpose for it. And then get and use that feedback to improve yourself for the next time. Now, here's my challenge. I want you to make this happen. I want you to look up a user group or conference that you can speak at or a virtual presentation. As you get ideas, jot them down. Create an outline and flesh it out over time. And practice creating your presentations. And of those that you practice with, ask for that feedback. And set a date and just do it. That's the end of the story. Just give that presentation. That will really help you. When you get the slides, here are some helpful resources that will help you in your goal to create a presentation. I like to thank the sponsors because we wouldn't be here without them, especially for the Postgres group. So really appreciate that. And so now is the time for any questions or comments. I do have some links to some free material that you can get when you download it. I would appreciate the feedback so that I can learn to do better. Even though I've done this for a long time, I can still always improve.
Thank you, Aaron, for such an insightful presentation. I think technical or not, speaker or not, there was so much information that is going to be really useful for everyone. If there is anything else you would like to add just to finish this?
No, I want to reiterate the challenge to make this happen, because you will grow from being able to give a presentation. And even if you give it only once or twice, you will still grow from that. And the more you do it, the more you will learn and grow.